Hey, what's up, garden friends? Welcome back for another great episode of Field Trip. And today we're going to be taking your garden trash, turning it into some treasure. The time has finally come out here in the garden. We're in my backyard. I got a pretty sweet little compost pile right here. If you've been watching the channel at all, you know I love making some compost. And so in today's episode, we're actually going to be finishing this up. And we've done top dressing, where we add it to the top of our soil. We can actually add it right to our garden beds and churn it up into the soil if you're going to be growing veggies and whatnot. But for today, we're actually making some potting soil, some fresh, brand new potting soil. If you've noticed, you go to the store, you can buy a lot of varieties of different different companies, brands. Even those different brands will have separate varieties of potting soil for different occasions. Some of it, really good potting soil. You'll find you can grow plants, different style of plants in certain expensive potting soils, and they grow great, but it comes at a price. Sometimes you'll go to places, maybe your big box stores, Home Depot, Lowe's, nothing against you guys, and sometimes they have potting soils or soils that are sold as, planting mix, and then you look at it and actually it's just shredded like bark or shredded like pallets even. And so it's, it's not the best just to grow, and it's actually more of like a mulch that I would probably use as a top dressing. So there's a wide variety of potting soils. I'm sure if you garden, you've already found out, like a huge selection. You go to your local nurseries, your big box stores, you go to hydroponic stores, you look online for what you can order. There is a lot of different companies out there with a vast array of soil products. But like I said, they all a little different, but they all come at a price. Today we're gonna make our own. I'm gonna teach you how to make your own. For us, I'm actually mainly using my trash, although we are gonna have a few ingredients that I did purchase, but they're not too expensive, so it actually it works out when it's all said and done. But I think you'll find you can make yourself a really good product, your own potting soil, if you do some of these simple things that I'm going to do here. And maybe you can make your own, and then you learn a little bit, and then within that you can kind of customize your potting soil to make different mixes for different situations. And then you kind of have your own custom blends that you're making for yourself out of old garden waste, which is the best part. This is all trash. This would have been stuff I would normally people be raking this up and tossing it out. I'm going to show you here in a minute that it actually is already broken down right here into fresh black earth. What we're going to do is we're going to pull that out, and then we're actually maybe sift it if needed. If not, we won't have to. And then, like I said, we have a few things to add to it, and then a couple other things to do to manipulate our soil to make sure that it's perfect for us to plant in. All right, let's find out. Sometimes you'll go to places, maybe your big box stores, Home Depot, Lowe's, nothing against you guys. And sometimes they have potting soils or soils that are sold as, planting mix. And then you look at it and actually it's just shredded like bark or shredded like pallets even. And so it's, it's not the best just to grow, and it's actually more of like a mulch that I would probably use as a top dressing. So there's a wide variety of potting soils. I'm sure if you garden, you've already found out, like a huge selection. You go to your local nurseries, your big box stores, you go to hydroponic stores, you look online for what you can order. There is a lot of different companies out there with a vast array of soil products. But like I said, they all a little different, but they all come at a price. Today we're going to make our own. I'm going to teach you how to make your own. For us, I'm actually mainly using my trash, although we are going to have a few ingredients that I did purchase, but they're not too expensive, so it actually it works out when it's all said and done. But I think you'll find you can make yourself a really good product, your own potting soil, if you do some of these simple things that I'm going to do here. And maybe you can make your own, and then you learn a little bit, and then within that you can kind of customize your potting soil to make different mixes for different situations. And then you kind of have your own custom blends that you're making for yourself out of old garden waste, which is the best part. This is all trash. This would have been stuff I would normally people be raking this up and tossing it out. I'm going to show you here in a minute that it actually is already broken down right here into fresh black earth. What we're going to do is we're going to pull that out, and then we're actually maybe sift it if needed. If not, we won't have to. And then, like I said, we have a few things to add to it, and then a couple other things to do to manipulate our soil to make sure that it's perfect for us to plant in. All right, let's find out. All right, so I dug down at the base of my compost pile and found myself some really good compost. But you can see it still has some pieces in it that are probably a little bit too big for what I want in my potting soil. So what you can do is, if you have this problem at home, if the pieces aren't, a problem for you, that's okay too. What we do sometimes is I've done this in other videos, but you can basically sift it if you have a sifter, and that'll pull out some of the material that's just a little bit too big for you, and you can give it more time to break down. A lot of this isn't too bad, but if you have like rocks or trash or anything like that, you can pull those out and then put them in a location that's better for you. And if these bigger pieces then can get tossed in the tossed away. And so I usually would scoop this up, right, with my shovel, have the students or myself sift it out. Maybe you can make a system at home where it's a little more sophisticated. I know some people want like ones that vibrate. I know there's barrel ones that work really well. Like I said, there's some plastic, right? So every now and then some trash gets in there. You can see this other material is still good for us. It's just a little bit too big, right? The chunks and smaller ones are okay. You could probably maybe make a screen that has different sizes if you wanted to. You wanted to get really clever. If you wanted to have different, you know, let different size chunks fall through, you could do that. But for me, this is just an old tray, and it works great. And so I just toss that old material back in the compost pile. The trash gets recycled or thrown away in the trash. But what we're left with when we're done is we should have some nice fresh soil compost that's broken down, crumbly, almost like breadcrumbs in a bit. You can see there's a little bit of old perlite in there from, we did recycle some old potting soil, but mainly sticks, leaves, twigs, lawn clippings, all the organic matter from my yard waste from my garden basically goes in there, and a little bit of kitchen waste as well, and it breaks down. And so what we're left with, like I said, is some really crumbly, decent soil that we're going to turn into some potting soil. There's a few other steps, so let's keep on going. All right, so for the next step, I'm actually going to bag it up into a black plastic bag, like a garbage bag. I'm going to grab some of my sifted compost. If I happen to find anything that goes in there that shouldn't be in there, I'll pull it out and toss it aside. But for the most part, it's looking nice and crumbly. The pieces are nice and broken down. Any pieces of wood are actually already kind of soft, and they break apart with just a few touches. But you can see it's a really nice mix of materials in there, and it's actually looking pretty good. And so you're gonna fill up a bag like this, and the reason being is normally I would just take my compost when it's finished, and like I said, add it straight to the garden right on top as a top dressing, or if you're out in the vegetable bed or flower garden, you add it right in there and stir it up and, you know, turn it into your soil right away. With this compost, because what it is I'm going to cook out any seeds that are in here that might still be alive in this soil. Typically in your compost pile, it's gonna, if it's hot enough, it should kill and neutralize any seeds that are in there if it gets hot enough for a long enough amount of time. Now, with that being said, even though this material is broken down pretty well, it's an exposed pile. I don't have it covered. It's out exposed to nature. I've been digging in it these last few days. And so for all I know, there could be seeds in there, tiny ones that have flown in that are still viable. And so what we're gonna do, hey there, Bear, is we're actually gonna bag it up, a nice big plastic bag like this, because you know why? Because black attracts a lot of heat. It doesn't reflect as much sunlight as a lighter color would. And so this is gonna get really hot. I'm gonna put a little bit of moisture in there, turn this bag over. I have a really hot location in the front of my house where it's all day sun. I'm gonna bag it up and actually leave it out there for probably several days, maybe 2 or 3 days, and let this bag solarize and cook out any seeds that may still be in there. Like I said, normally, you know, big pile gets hot enough, your compost is gonna kill most of those seeds. But since this is gonna be potting mix, and maybe even, might even actually start some seeds in it eventually. But for the most part, it'll be a potting mix that I'm gonna keep around my home. I wanna make sure that it doesn't have a bunch of seeds, whether they be good plants or weeds. I don't want them in there. And so I want those neutralized and killed. And so one way to do that is we're actually gonna rebag it up, get it, like I said, put a little bit of moisture in there. I'm gonna seal it off and then put it out somewhere where it's cooking out in the sun all day, flip it over, let it sit for a few days, and then bring it back. And then we're gonna do some more stuff to it to jazz this stuff up, this soil, and make it just a prime, just an awesome potting mix that is essentially, I have a lot more to make, so it's not just this one little bag. I can make quite a bit of this, and then I can store it and have it at my home. It's gonna save me from having to spend, you know, oftentimes you'll find yourself spending quite a bit of money on potting soil, and so that's something that you can minimize and lessen your potting soil budget, so that way that's money that can go into more plants, more seeds, maybe some garden tools, things like that, all right? So let's get this outside. I'm gonna let it cook for a few days, and then we'll come on back. All right. So while our soil is out there cooking, our compost, hey there, Bear. While our compost is out there cooking, I know we're gonna get Bear in the action. Bear's really excited. I feel like I've been neglecting him. He's been a good big brother to the baby lately. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna have him help us make this potting soil. Have you ever had a dog help you make potting soil? Well, we're gonna do that today. What I wanna do is actually, we're gonna collect some little hidden treasures throughout the garden here, and your backyard may have them too. So some things we tend to overlook that have value are things that are often just everyday items. So right here is something that I'm gonna have Bear help me collect, and then we're gonna chop some up because I wanna try to mix it into our potting mix to give it just a little bit of texture, to give, that way water can flow through and there'll be bigger chunks that can break down over time. What it is with compost, sometimes I've noticed, and so we're just gonna go around and get more of these sticks, and we're gonna chop them up and break them up into little small chunks. I wouldn't eat them, but I'd say they'd probably be chunks that are smaller than bite size. And these are little oak branches. I got a lot of valley oaks and in my area right here, which are beautiful, but they're definitely messy as they grow. But I like to use all that mess, and so we're gonna collect a whole bundle of these, a bunch of them. We're gonna chop them up, break them up, and then we're actually gonna add that into our mix. And you'd say, hey, normally, like, why aren't you adding that just to your compost? Well, we are, and so a lot of that mix already has decomposed oak in it, as well as decomposed aged redwood. But today we're gonna grab these branches of oak, the quercus, and we're gonna break them up into little kibble sizes, and then we're actually gonna add that into our potting mix, just a little bit, not a ton. You know, it's like I'm not gonna make a mix that's all bark. It's just or all branches and twigs. What we're gonna do is just a little bit of kibble in there, just to kind of break up the texture of that soil. So that way, because I noticed in the past when I've used compost, if I use it straight away for planting mix, and just like in a pot, actually as a potting mix, it tends to hold a lot of water. Which can be a good thing, but when it's by itself, it'll just hold a ton of water, but not really hold a lot of air. So we're gonna do some things like having these little chunks in there that are gonna help water and air kind of flow through the soil and not just stay there completely. They'll slowly break down and add back to the soil over time. Like I said, we're not gonna use a ton of it, so it's not gonna really rob a huge amount of nitrogen. I know a lot of people are afraid of using wood chunks in their soil, but when it's just a small amount, it's nothing that the fertilizer can't compensate for. So we're gonna have me and Bear, we'll get some of these, and then there's actually 2 more ingredients that we're gonna talk about that are gonna go straight into the potting mix, as well as a nutritional supplement. So let's get to it. Bring here. Bring here. Good boy. Good boy. Hey, thanks Bear for getting all those sticks and twigs. I appreciate it. So once you got a pretty good little amount of some appropriate branches, you know, so you'll probably find out some wood and trees work better than others. And so I'm just actually gonna break it into small pieces. Like I said, little kibble sized bites, something kind of akin to like that. So I'm gonna break this all up, and then we'll have this ready to add, and then we'll talk more. All right, well that wasn't too difficult breaking up those little bits and pieces, but you can see I've got them chopped up, and most of them are still kind of decomposing pretty good, so they break up with just a touch. They're really gonna be good to go and add in there. Like I said, if you have any big pieces, maybe like that might be too big to add to this, but won't break down easily, toss it aside. But we're in the home stretch, folks. If you made it this far, I really appreciate it. Please consider, if you like it, please smash into that like button, dig all up in that like button. And if you're not already subscribed, hey, please subscribe with us. We'd love to have you back for more garden adventures. Got lots to do and lots to learn and lots to share. All right, and so we got the wood chips, we've got perlite, we've got vermiculite that we're gonna add, and we also have some organic soil nutrition. It's a starter fertilizer. Has some mycorrhizal fungi in there, a lot of beneficial nutrients, all your nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and I'll probably even end up adding in some BioLive, which is similar to this, but it's a bit stronger, a little bit when it comes to the nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium levels. Anywho, all right, so the perlite is really good to add to our compost, especially, like I said, sometimes when you use compost straight in a container with just the compost, which we're trying to do here, it holds too much water, because organic matter tends to suck up water, right, and hold on to it. And if most of our compost, or I mean literally almost all of it, is just organic matter. So as it's broken down, if you notice when you do add water to it, it sucks it up like a sponge and holds it really, really well. But it doesn't have pore spaces like a sponge, you know, at least not as many. And so it tends to kind of get a little soggy, and then will lack oxygen, right? And so if you have plants in a container where the soil doesn't breathe, guess what? Even though they've got water, they'll end up suffering from lack of oxygen, air in the soil. So what we're gonna do is we add this perlite, which is like a volcanic rock that's been heated up, and it puffs up and has all these little holes in it. It doesn't really have any nutritional value itself, but nutrients can get locked in here over time from other sources. but what we really use it for is to break up the soil and to allow water and air to flow through your soil really well. You also see people use this perlite in hydroponic settings where they'll have it wrapped up in like a mesh bag inside of a container with nutrient water flowing through it. And so you can actually use it as a straight grow media. Oftentimes people will use it to root plants in if you're doing cloning. I see that a lot. I've done it myself. And then other times you can actually mix this with other things to make a cloning medium as well. So you can use it straight, you can mix it in. For today, we're using it as a mixture to amend our compost, because we're trying to convert this compost that we have into potting soil. This will allow the water to drain through, so our compost soil, our potting soil, will not just hold water just indefinitely forever and not breathe. This is going to allow the roots to kind of move about, let the air and water flow through, and so that way this is going to be great for us. What it is I would suggest when you're mixing it into your bag, just start slow, a couple handfuls or whatever, scoopfuls, because it's really going to depend on how much soil you have in your bag. And so it's really going to be up to you. What kind of soil do you want? Do you want your potting soil to drain really, really fast? If you want to drain extremely fast for your plants, you're going to want to add more perlite. If you don't want it to drain too fast, then you'd add a little bit less. And so like I said, it's going to take some experimentation. The wood chunks are also going to help a little bit with drainage for the same fact that it kind of creates pore space in there, but over time it'll break down and kind of add to that organic matter mix where it's actually absorbing and holding a bit of water. Over to the vermiculite, right? And so this is a mineral that's mined as well. It kind of looks like an accordion, little layers of it when you get close up to it. And so it's also pretty light. Like when you have a bag of perlite, you feel really strong because you can lift up an entire huge, like 3 cubic foot bag like you're the Hulk, because it's so light, right? Because most of it's just air. Vermiculite is a little bit heavier, but still pretty light material, and so it actually has a similar property where it does help with soil aeration and porosity, where it'll help the water drain through the soil a little bit. If you have really compact soils, the vermiculite can help loosen that a little bit and then add to aeration. Where it differs from this is it actually has the ability to absorb a bit of nutrition, a bit of water as well. I think it does have some light nutritional value, but it's such a small amount. I don't think it's we're even worried about bringing up. But with the vermiculite, it'll actually absorb air and water pretty good in a balance for the most part. It'll hold like I said, it'll help with aeration, but it actually helps also with water retention of your soil. And so sometimes we'll use this in our you can see this a big old chunk of it right here, and you see it's all a bunch of layers. And then when they get squeezed flat, my students love doing this, squeezing it flat. And so we like to use this as for cloning medium, for rooting, getting houseplants rooted in. You can use it straight in it. Like I said, you can mix the two. You can mix this into your potting mixes. There's a lot of different uses for it, but the plants tend to like it. The root growth tends to like it. We don't need to add too much of it, but we are going to add some to just help with the soil, help with the potting mix, and just kind of create a nice blend that is going to have different sizes of bits and pieces that are also going to, like I said, help with absorbing water, but really help with it draining water as well. And so I think all three of these things are going to do a great job at that. And I said at the end, this is usually something I'll add more of when I'm planting later on with the potting soil. But to add a little bit in there just to get the biology of this mix going really good. There's some mycorrhizal fungi in this fertilizer specifically, the Sure Start, and it's not super duper strong, right? It's pretty mild. So we're actually going to add a bit of that into the entire bag, mix it in, and just let it sit there, and then it'll be good to go when we're ready to plant. That is how we do it. I'll show you a little clip at the end of the finished product, but that is basically it. That's how we do. That's how you make compost potting soil from your compost, right? So you want to solarize it. You got to sift it, solarize it, amend it, right? And then jazz it up with nutrition, and then solarize it some more, and then just let it sit, and then until you need it, and then life's good. So let's take a look at what the finished product looks like. All right, well, check out the finished product. Not too bad, huh? Let's take a look. So you can see that's our potting soil that we made from compost. You can see all of our mixtures in there. We solarized it, so any of the seeds that may have survived are now dead. This is ready to use. Cannot wait to use this for my house plants, maybe for some of my outdoor plants as well, on my succulents. This is going to be a good mix. Let me pull over the bag. You can see the whole bag. So it's looking pretty decent. Got a good mix in there. Got some nutrition. Lots of organic matter, and this is all from garden waste, all from trash with a little bit of purchased material. Only purchased material was the Sure Start, the perlite and the vermiculite. And those, like, you can buy in pretty large bags, and they're not too expensive, and a little bit goes a long way. And so, like I said, this is finished. This is amazing potting soil. I cannot wait to use this. It's nice and crumbly. It's going to drain. It'll hold a bit of water, but not too dang much, right? So this is going to be great for us. If you do this at home, please let me know in the comment section below. I'd love to know what you do for your tips. You probably have better tips and tricks than I do. You can do this a million different ways. Today's video just shows you one way that I did it. But this is one of my favorite things to do, is get out in the garden, use compost, use what was normally going to be waste, and now it's something fantastic that I can come back and use in the future to grow some amazing plants to continue that cycle once more. So from our garden to yours, happy gardening, best wishes. I hope you are all doing fantastic, and see you next time.